Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been a minute or two since we have been together on Snack and Chat, and I'm just so thankful and grateful to be back and to be having these conversations with you. Um, Jen is joining us. I can't think of a better person to like revamp our Snack and Chat than with you, Jen. So I appreciate you coming and joining and chatting about preparing for March break. Um, which is nuts to me because I feel like we just finished Christmas break.
I know, right? It's really creeping up, only a couple more weeks. And
It's
I'm really
crazy.
happy to be here, Catherine. Thank you for asking me. This is exciting.
It
Yay.
is. Yay, us and yay, Snack and Chat. I'm so excited to be back. Okay, so let's kind of get through some of our housekeeping. And then obviously I'm going to formally introduce our guest with us. And we can go from there. So again, we want to thank you all so much for joining us for this month's Snack and Chat. It is a reoccurring segment where we come together and discuss topics that are top of mind to adoptive, kin, permanency, and customary care families in Ontario and possibly beyond. My name is Catherine, and I have the privilege of hosting these chats with professionals, with live experts, and just generally incredible people within our communities. So, if you are not familiar with Adopt for Life, we are a not for profit charitable organization that provides free peer support, community, education, advocacy, awareness, support groups, you name it. And you can learn more about us and gain access to valuable resources by ensuring to click both the like and the follow on our public Facebook page where you are seeing us now, or you can go to our website, adopt4life.com. So again, thank you so much, Jen, for coming on, and we're chatting all things March break, how to prepare, how to make it through, how to celebrate it. But before we do this, and before I kind of share a bit more how we're going to be using this platform, I do want to take pause and acknowledge the lands that we're situated on today. So I do understand that we're coming from various places in the world. So I ask that you take time to reflect on personal territory in treaty. I personally reside within the traditional territory of Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, Ojibwe, and Mississauga of the Credits people within Treaty 19, home now to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and as a first step towards improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures, to recognize and acknowledge the historic and ongoing devastating effects of colonialism and racism in the name of assimilation across Canada, and to each consider how we can, in our own way, action forward in truth, in spirit, and in reconciliation. As long as the sun shines, the grass grows, and the river flows. Thank you so much for taking that moment with me. So we do want this to be an engaging and an interactive lunch 45 minutes, I guess. So please feel free to comment below. You can share your own experiences, ask questions, engage with the content that we're talking about. We also would love to hear where you're actually logging in from. So please feel free to jot down your city in the comments below. We get to see where you're coming in, and hopefully we get people who are all around this beautiful province. We do want to let you know that this segment is being streamed live and shared publicly across social media platforms, meaning that this can be accessed at any time. So we ask that you remain mindful of personal or sensitive information, especially of information of the children and youth in your care. Okay, now let's get into our amazing guest here. So, Jen is a rural southwestern Ontario parent and has a social work background. She has been a concurrent, oh my goodness, foster parent for over a decade, and she has nurtured over a dozen baby and toddlers. She adopted three older children from the public care system, and her youngest came to her home and her family through kinship care. Four of her six children identify as Indigenous, as Cree, Ojibwe, and Métis, and she is dedicated to supporting the Indigenous communities and promoting anti-racism in her area. She brings firsthand understanding of children and families who face FASD, developmental trauma, attachment disorder, and anxiety. I tried to get through that as best as I could, folks. I'm a little rusty at this.
You did a
So
great job.
thank you. I realized once I started talking, I'm like, it's been a while since I've done this. So that was a lot of me talking. But we're going to go ahead and get into some of the questions that we have for you, Jen, and just in general, talking about March break and how to prepare. So again, if you do have questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat, and we're going to do our absolute best to answer them. If we can't get to your question, please still ask. If you're watching this on replay, please still ask, because the thing is, I know how to get a hold of Jen. So you can still ask and we'll still be able to answer you, whether that's privately or again through some of our platforms. So Jen, the first question that I have for you, like we were saying, March break is 3 weeks away, which is just crazy and unbelievable. But I'm wondering if you can share some key considerations for parents and caregivers in terms of like preparing for this and supporting our children during this transition.
Thanks, Catherine. Thanks for that great introduction. I was giggling to myself when you said for people to put what city they're from in the chat, because there might be some caregivers watching who are like me, who are like, well, there's cows in the field behind me. There's really no city. So I think as we're having this conversation, we're from all over the place as adoptive caregivers and kin and customary care, and not everything's going to be available to us in the same way. But I think the number one most important thing as you're preparing for March break is to actually prepare. So I wanted to share a little story. The very fact that you're watching this, whether live or a replay, means you are miles ahead of where I was when I first became an adoptive caregiver. I made the mistake. So I have 2 biological children, and they were a little bit older when we adopted. And I kind of went into March break, my first March break with my adopted kiddos, with the same mindset I had for many years with my older children. And that was to just not plan much. And we're just going to sleep in and we're going to have fun. And we're just going to, do what we want each day, which worked great when I had neurotypical children that had not experienced trauma, did not have attachment disorders, but it was an epic disaster, like an absolute disaster, my first year not having planned anything, because kids who have experienced what many of our adopted children have, even if we've adopted from infancy, they've still, there are still things that they've experienced, loss, and having no plan, having no routine, and nothing that they can expect to happen just doesn't work. Yeah. So I think it's really important as we plan for our break times, even though we as caregivers wish it could just be a sleep in, relax, let's just do whatever time, we're going to have to adjust and pivot and make it a little more structured than that. And one thing I've found helpful with my own kids is that we sit down and we make a plan together pretty well ahead, like even like a month ahead, so they know what's coming. So if we're working in special activities or play dates or anything like that, it's kind of all worked in. My kids do really well if they can see it in picture form. So we have something on the fridge with pictures so they kind of know what to expect. And then also having some conversations before March break with your kids that this is what we want to do, but let's just prepare ourselves. If somebody gets sick, if there's a winter storm or something like that, it may not happen. And that's hopefully going to prevent some epic meltdowns if we're not able to hold to the routine that we've decided on with our kids. So yeah, sorry, that was a long-winded answer, Catherine, but I think
it's good. I think it's needed. Like having any preparation is good. And I know that like some families we talk to and they're like, you know what, we relax on the routines, we relax on bedtime. I know in my family that doesn't fly. So having that conversation before and saying like, bedtime's still bedtime, it doesn't matter where we are, because that impacts everybody in our whole, and even us as parents, like I need bedtime to be bedtime. So
Yeah.
I
I
love the
remember,
idea of kind of having that calendar, almost like a schedule, so they know what to prep for.
yeah. I remember I had a really good conversation with a therapist actually for my kids very early on when we adopted. And she kind of explained things to me in terms of holidays and special occasions. She used the example of the spine of our back. So she kind of said, you don't want to be the rigid spine that says this is what we're doing and we're not making any changes. You don't want to be the back that breaks either and that just goes with anything. You want to be a healthy spine, just kind of bends, a spine that bends a little bit. So, yeah, as we're talking bedtime, for example, like you just said, okay, so maybe we can let them have a 15-minute adjustment to their bedtime during March break and they can sleep in a wee bit in the morning, but we're not going to completely alter their entire routine for a week and then try to get them back on it. That's just asking for trouble. So it's something to keep in mind with bedtimes and many, many other things, many other routines that we'll be facing during March break. Yeah.
100%. So another question that came is oh, this is a good one. So we kind of touched about this already, but I'm still going to ask, can you share strategies and tips for maintaining that balance between structured and unstructured time? So it's interesting because in my family, we have a kid that does well with unstructured. We have another child who very much does not do well with unstructured time. So I know that it's a struggle in our house. So I'm wondering if you have any strategies or tips that you can share about
Yes.
finding that kind of. I like the spine idea. I'm just wondering too if you have any suggestions for people.
Well, I know what my husband and I have really embraced divide and conquer. So you can imagine with 6 kids, we we can try to do everything together as a family, but it really is not. Everyone has a completely different personality, completely different needs. So I think it's really important what you said to acknowledge, okay, this child does really well with this child doesn't. Is there a way that as parents, if we're a two-parent home, can we take them separate to do certain things? Can we enlist grandma or a neighbor or just somebody in our village of support that can help us with that so that all the kids in our home are kind of getting what they need? Not 100% of the time, but it would be nice if some of the time they can. And we have this thought, especially when we're thinking about attachment, we have this thought that we need to do everything together all the time as a family. And that's really hard on kids who have attachment difficulty, not just being around us as caregivers all the time, but around their sibling all the time. That can be very triggering. So I think it's okay to make room for space and time apart. And as we kind of think about structured versus unstructured, I know something that really helped us as a family is we always, on our breaks, have something planned in the morning. So
Mhm.
morning is our structure time. So if it's a trip to the library, if we've decided we're going to maybe go tobogganing as a family or something, there's something scheduled and structured in the morning, and then we eat our lunch. And then afternoon time can be a little bit more free time if we want to watch a movie together as a family, or one kid just wants to go play, one needs a nap, then you kind of are working both into the day. If that makes sense. That works well for us. But
I
yeah.
think that makes sense, and I think that you touched on a really important point about um, dividing and conquering in that things are going to look different for each family and for each child. I'm very comfortable sharing that one of my children has very complex disabilities. Any unstructured time can actually be very triggering and potentially unsafe. So in my house, what we've done is we've sent her to sleepover camp where we know her needs are met. She is happy. They can keep a routine. They can, she gets to have the structure she needs, and we get to do activities with our other children who are able to manage that unstructured. So I just wanted to share that. So if you are a parent who is sending your child to camp, One, because you have to work, but two, potentially for your sanity, that is okay too. It is okay for it to look a little bit different compared to your neighbors and friends and family, because our situations can be a little bit more complex or different than others around us.
I love that, Catherine. I wish we could just shout that from the rooftops to every adopted caregiver. If you're sending, I mean, there are so many great overnight camps and also day camps. March break, you got YMCA and municipalities running amazing camps, and the kids are having a blast. They're having a really good time, but we have this guilt and shame as a caregiver thinking, well, I'm at home. Technically, they could be with me if we're not working, or we're working and we're feeling like, you know, gosh, I'm abandoning them. They're not having this idyllic March break. Um, if you're feeling that guilt and blame and shame, just stop yourself, because this is what we need to do to survive. And it's not going to look the same as a typical family. And you're right, that is completely okay.
Yeah, it takes a while to get over that guilt piece. And sometimes you may get comments from friends and family who don't understand your situation, um, who are well intentioned, but it just may come out a certain way. And you have to sometimes have thicker skin. But going back to that community of people who get it and who understand is going to be so crucial when you're making decisions about your family that other people may not get, so to speak. So, absolutely. Um, we deviated off the questions, but that's fine. That's what we like to do. Um, okay, so we see we've touched on a lot of these. So, ooh, okay, this is a good one. So we talked about we're in March break, we're making these plans, and oh, the one piece as well is asking for help. Asking for help. There's no shame in asking for help, having, like you said, grandma, paid support workers, respite, whatever it is that you need to have in the home, like get it. You're not the only one, I can assure you. Um, I'm wondering if you have thoughts around specific strategies that you implement in your home or that you help support other families implement to help children adjust back getting into the routine of school. So I kind of feel like we're kind of there and we maybe get into a solid routine and maybe we get to do a couple of fun special things together, whether it's a board game at night or whatever it is. And then you wake up, and I know in my family, like the Monday morning after a weekend is just
Yeah.
brutal. I don't know how else to put
Yep.
it. Coming back from a holiday can be really difficult. So do you have any suggestions or tips about how we can manage this or prep our kids as much as possible?
Yeah, something that might be useful to everybody watching, it has been in my home, is to implement what's called a flip day. So that's the day before you return to school. So in this case, it's likely a Sunday before the Monday. You really plan that day to be absolute routine, no big special events, no, big exciting things. Everyone's getting adequate sleep. They're going to bed maybe early or at a good time. And we tend to, like in our home, we make lunches with the kids the day before they go to school. So you're making your lunches, packing the backpacks. So they're kind of getting ready and seeing, okay, school's starting tomorrow. And then really sitting and having a conversation with your kids about their emotions. Are they scared to go back? Maybe they're excited to go back. Maybe they really are dreading it. Both the high and the low emotions can cause a flip out, right? Happy is also a big emotion. So is sad. So being able to just give them the space and freedom to talk about it with you. I know I have a child that for some reason in our school, the teachers like to change the seating plan the day after March break. Like they
Yeah, they do it in my kids' school too. So
yeah,
triggering for some kids, right?
it is. So we have a talk about that, and maybe we even are sending a little email to the teacher, my child is having anxiety about this. Um, there's some friendships, there's some relationships going on they're having anxiety about. I just wanted to give you a heads up that when they come tomorrow, it might be really tough for them. Maybe here's some things that might help in the classroom to get through it. And then just a little bit of encouragement. I'm not somebody who has my act together enough to send a note in my child's lunch every single day. I admire parents who can, but maybe there's certain days where you could, the day after March break or the first day of school, these transition days where you send a little note that has a little picture or just something. I hope you're having a good day. I'm thinking about you. Just so that when they're back in that routine, there's that connection to home. They can kind of maybe settle their emotions a little bit. Um, and just to be aware as adoptive parents, again, we already talked about it, but our kids are going to find this transition harder than the average kid. And that's okay. And it's okay for us as caregivers. Maybe you're planning the Monday after March break as a day off for you, where you can actually restore and settle in a little bit after the crazy that
That's
was
a
March break.
smart move. That's preparing ahead right there. It's interesting, Jen, as you were kind of talking about preparing our kids, having those conversations, you reminded me that we have something that we do usually for our younger kids. We used to do it for all our kids until they, they got a bit older, but we do have a child in our home who does have a hard time with um, attachment and a lot of anxiety with transitions. And she is a bit younger. And so we've started this routine that after any break, whether it's summer, holiday, whatever it is, we have something called a hugging monster. And it's basically just a little stuffed animal with a clip that goes on her backpack. And we all go around the house and we each fill it up with hugs. So mom, dad, siblings, we go to the dog and the cats and whatever else, the hamster, we just, everyone kind of gets a little bit of love on this and we put it on her backpack. And every time she misses us or she's needing that extra support, all she has to do is squeeze or hug the little monster on her backpack. And that's how she is able to connect with us. So it's a little thing that we still kind of do. And it's
I
nice to get
love
the
that.
animals. Yeah, so it's something that I mean our teens think, it's lame at this point. You just kind of, maybe rub it on their bed and walk away so they don't, think that we're,
Yeah.
invading their privacy or making them hug something. But it really works for her and she lets us know we're running out of hugs. We need to refill it back up. And it just kind of gives her something to hold on to from home. And just as a reminder that we're here supporting her.
Mm.
Um, but I love, Jen, that you're saying like having those discussions about all of the emotions because even the excited to go to school emotions can still be triggering.
Mhm.
Um,
It
it can be
can,
hard.
and it's really something. And actually, Catherine, you mentioned your teenagers, and I feel like we should bring teens into this conversation as well because as much as it's hard for our littles to transition back and the big emotions they're experiencing, I think it's just as hard for the teens. They really value that break they're getting. And I've noticed some of my teens, um, little things, yeah. Well, we might not be sending a note in their lunch pail but just a simple text the first day back at their lunch break. Hey, are you doing okay? I'm thinking about you. I've got some cookies waiting for when you get home, your favorite snack or something like that, just to check in with our teenagers because they're having a hard time too. And it's a little trickier to stick to that routine with teenagers, I will say, during a break, because they want to sleep in, they want to stay up late with their friends. Um, but if there are little things we can do, I know with my teens, we started a number of years ago for March break that a lot of them plan some of their volunteer hours for high school. You need your 40
Mm,
hours volunteer.
yeah.
We actually started planning that during March break. So it did keep them in a bit of a routine and something to do so that they weren't completely bored, which sometimes leads to certain behaviors. So that's kind of when they've grown out of the ability to go to a day camp or to go to a program or a structured thing. If they're able to have a little volunteer job or even a part-time job where they're doing something to fill even half the day, can really help you as a caregiver and give you a break and them a break from you.
Yeah, I find that with so I have a teen and a preteen, like I find that sitting down and playing board games and going for family walks, like that doesn't happen without like 15 eye rolls and, everything else. So I find that kind of taking their lead. I have one child who will only text me their feelings and what's happening, and I'm fine with that as long as that dialogue is happening. And, I will try and play Fortnite with them to find some sort of connection with them, even though I'm horrible at it. So I think it's important to like, yeah, like you're saying, take their lead. And yeah, my teens aren't gonna have hugging monsters on their backpacks, but they do appreciate that their favorite outfit is washed and ready, and I kind of lay it out for them the night before so they don't have to be stressed, trying to find their favorite clothes, that kind of stuff. That
Yeah,
helps my family at least.
absolutely.
Okay, so we have about 20 minutes left. So I do want to chat about um, families who are experiencing AFCA because I feel like this just adds an entire level that um, many um, either don't know about or don't like discussing publicly, um, or acknowledge. So I do want to acknowledge and validate that any breaks for families who are experiencing AFCA and living with AFCA is that much harder. So before we get into any of those questions, do you mind sharing a little bit more about what AFCA actually is? Do you have like a Coles Notes version of how we can explain
Sure.
to people? Yeah.
Yeah, so AFCA is an acronym for Aggression Towards Family and Caregivers in Childhood and Adolescence. I know that's a mouthful, that's why we just call it AFCA for short, but it's really describing a pattern of behavior where a child or teen is directing aggression towards the caregivers in their home or other siblings or extended family in the home. And we're talking fairly serious aggression, and it can be physical, but it could also be verbal, property damage, posturing, emotional and psychological aggression. So that it comes out in many different forms. And I think it's great we're going to be able to talk about this a little bit today, Catherine, because March break or any school breaks at all takes away a lot of our support system when we're in an Africa family. And the aggression can grow in an isolated situation where you're at home without anybody else watching or supervising. And that can be incredibly hard. I know a lot of our Africa families just dread breaks, like they feel sick to their stomach even thinking about it. So I'm glad we can have a bit of a conversation about this because AFCA is it's highly represented in adoptive families because of a myriad of reasons. The reasons children and teens display AFCA are usually because of a history of trauma, because of attachment difficulties, as well as a lot of brain-based disorders. So there are a lot of reasons why it's highly represented in adoptive and kin families. Um, but yeah, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. And I appreciate we have about 15 minutes, so we're not going to cover everything. For those who are watching who are part of the AFCA community, this is just the start to the conversation. So please bring your questions, your concerns, any support needs to those communities. If you think that you might resonate or you might actually be an AFCA family, but you aren't linked up with the supports, please know that we do have supports and resources available. So we're going to post in the comments the link to our AFCA website. So if you're just looking to even learn a bit more about that, please do so. And just please know that you aren't alone through any of this March break and beyond. So, for families who have been experiencing AFCA or who are getting into March break and they are an AFCA family, what supports are available to them?
Great question. So first of all, I wanted to mention at Adopt for Life, we have some supports available. So we do have some support groups running during March break, as well as if you're not connected, if you're an AFCA family and aren't connected yet with our AFCA Facebook community, that's just a really great place to just, if the day is not going well, to be able to be honest about it because it's a closed private group. No one else No one in your family, no one else is going to see what you post on that page. And also, everyone in our community has a regional parent liaison that, you can reach out and get support, even if it's just a phone call. You just need to talk to somebody to try to figure out if things are just a disaster. It sometimes helps to talk it out. Sometimes you figure out a solution, but sometimes you don't, and it just helps to have somebody hear you. So please make sure you're taking advantage of all the supports at Adopt for Life. But another thing to look at is the community around you. So we talked a little bit about our kind of support network in our village. Many AFCA families don't have a huge support network. They might not have much of a village. So even this is a few weeks before March break, as you're going into it, it might be good to just sit down and do a little writing exercise and try to brainstorm who you could maybe tap for support during March break. If you don't already kind of have people in your circle that could do that. And it could be something as simple as um, just my neighbor. Do I have a neighbor that I can call if things go badly during March break, that I could even just call them up and say there's a retired man living next door. Okay, March break is coming up. If something goes bad, can I call you? And you just pop over and check on us. It's really hard sometimes to have those conversations because you have to kind of be honest about what you're going through. But I think if you practice it more and more, I know in my home, I've just become an open book where everybody knows. And the more you do it, the braver you get the next time when you have to ask for help. But it's really important for ASCA families to be specific about their ask if they're going to need support. So, for example, one thing we've done is we have 3 different family members who are in charge of 3 different things for one of our children. So one of them will help with just their like extracurricular sporting type things where I know that there's maybe going to be some aggression happening and I need somebody else there with me. So that's the person for that. And then there's another family member who is available that I can just call on my cell phone on speakerphone and then can just, they don't live close by. They can just talk. So if things are escalating in my home, then they hear that person's voice and suddenly they don't want anybody hearing the aggression, so they stop. So it's just really important to ask specific directives of people in your support circle as you're going into a period of time where you might feel really alone. It can help you not feel alone. And I always say, if you're lucky enough, I know I live in a rural area, but if you're lucky enough to live in a city, um, if it helps your mental health, as we're talking about planning out things, it helps your mental health, to plan out every day that you're doing something in a public place where you're not by yourself. So even if that's a mall or a library, and sometimes that's hard because we think, oh, my kid is going to misbehave in public and everyone's going to see it. But sometimes that's actually safer. That's safer than if it happens at home. And making sure we have a lot of resources for safety planning, if you don't know much about that, but making sure you have the numbers to call and you know the plan in your own home, what you're going to do if this happens to stay safe. It's just really good to have that because unfortunately, a lot of feedback we get from AFCA families is that the times when really big situations happen, they're during our breaks, Christmas break, March break, summer break. Not that we want to catastrophize and assume something's going to happen because it might not. It might be a lovely break for you, but it's always good to just go into it feeling a little more prepared for the what ifs.
Thank you for that. And as you were talking, I just realized again that, there is a lot of stigma attached to being an AFCA family. And I know that um, myself as an adoptive mom, you can just put so much pressure that it's supposed to look and we're supposed to do certain thing and it's supposed to look good and I'm supposed to be able to manage this. And that's not always the case. And love isn't always enough. And I think saying it out loud is huge and it's a scary step, but it's important for everyone's safety. I know as well in our home when we do experience AFCA as well in our home, talking to our other kids, having a plan with the other kids is important. So we have keywords in our home that if it's escalating, they have safe people to go to, they have safe spaces where they go to, where we know that they will be okay and that it kind of eases our mind as well. So I know for us when we're planning, like it could be those little things, having those little people, going to a Facebook group and saying something and not feeling embarrassed or ashamed and having other people be like, I get it. That's literally happening to me. Like, I can't tell you how absolutely validating that is to have a community like that and having someone pick up a phone call and not necessarily giving you 25 different suggestions, but just listening
Mhm.
is huge. And um, being safe and feeling safe, unless you're going through it, it's something that you don't necessarily think about. But it's important to
Yeah.
prep as much as possible because the last thing you want to do is to be in a crisis situation looking for the crisis numbers to call.
Yes. And Catherine, I'm so glad you mentioned siblings. We're actually starting to develop some resources for siblings in our AFCA program, but we have such diverse families, and a lot of our families, you may have one child who's expressing AFCA in the home and not the other siblings. You might have, like in my family, where there's some biological siblings, there's some adopted, there's a lot of different things. Kin homes also can look very different. And sometimes I know I have felt during breaks that I wasn't able to give some of my children who weren't as needy, I wasn't able to give them time or attention. It felt like they were completely ignored. So I think part of our strategy can be, what are some things I can plan during March break where I'm just getting those kids and doing something special with them? And can I kind of create some relationship moments with them where they feel loved on and they feel special and they feel like I'm paying attention to them? And you're right, we struggle with these feelings of guilt. Oh, that's showing favoritism, or the other child's going to be jealous. But you'd be surprised how often the other kids don't really notice anyway if you're doing that. Or if they're, like you said, if they're at a camp or somewhere else, that gives you the opportunity to spend special moments with the other kids that maybe most of the rest of the time aren't being given the attention because you're so busy putting out fires with the other child. So it March break can be a really nice opportunity to have some, well, we call it restorative time in our AFCA program, but having restorative time with your other children, it can be really a powerful and healing moment to do just little things with them like that. And the safety piece, if they have time where they can breathe and have time and space apart so they feel safe, it's just as important for siblings to have time away for restorative time as it is for us as caregivers.
We do a lot of Starbucks runs, and even if it's or Tim's or whatever it is that the kids we should try and get some sponsorship. No, if like we try and do like a little, and it's in the car, and it's we're just going through the drive-through, and it's me and one of the siblings, and we talk about it. And for me, I like to name it and tell them I don't feel like we're spending enough time, or that was a really big episode that so and so had today that was really tough, wasn't it? And just naming it, um and addressing the elephant in the room, because sometimes you feel like you have to do it all and we're just all human. um 5 minutes, so I don't know how we're going to get through this, Jen, but the one question you talked about, restorative time with siblings, what about restorative time with ourselves? Do you have suggestions for families who are prepping for March break, who have to give their all to their children, to siblings, to work, whatever they have going on? What are things that we can do to help restore our own mental health?
Thanks, Catherine. Yes, so there are a lot of barriers, first of all, to getting that time for ourselves. One is just inner dialogue, that feeling of, oh, I should be able to do this. My kid has an attachment disorder. Why would I want to be away from them? So it's dealing with our kind of inner guilt. Um, but then the other barrier is frankly finding respite or finding someone who can care for your children while you're away. Because especially if we have our child has extraordinary needs. So we might have a spouse who can do that and we take time away. But sometimes we don't. We got a lot of single parents in our community.
Mhm.
So if you need help with that, by the way, ask us at Adopt for Life. Our regional parent liaisons are experts at finding respite providers. So definitely look into that and finding funding for it and that type of thing. But one piece I did want to mention, if this helps your inner dialogue, um, I remember many years in a row feeling so frustrated when it was time for a school break because the school where my child, one of the schools where my child attended, they had like they had like a billboard at the end where they put different announcements. And it would always say, parents, tag, you're it. That's what it would always say at break time, right? And I felt so frustrated every time reading that because teachers, EAs, they do a fabulous job. I know we have many in our community, but they're only spending 6 to 7 hours of 24 with our kids. They're not parenting our kids. And the job they're doing most of the year isn't actually harder than our job. They also get prep periods and lunch breaks and all of these different things. So please don't feel guilted by the rest of society who's telling you, well, I've been watching your kids since Christmas break. Now it's your turn. Tag, you're it. Well, you've been doing a lot of the hard parenting already, and you can't do this 24/7 without help and without a break and without a breather. That would drive anyone insane. So if that helps your inner dialogue at all, but there's just simple, like I know for myself, if money is an issue, a lot of times finances are an issue. Okay, I can't afford to go to the spa, I can't afford to go to the movies. Just something simple as having a neighbor or a friend watch my kids for 45 minutes so I can go for a walk. There's something really powerful about just being able to get out in nature, to get outside this time of year. Sometimes the snow and the sun, it's just beautiful. Just to be able to breathe and think for 45 minutes, something very small can really make a big difference. Or even if it's within your own home, that you have a space you can escape to read a book, have a bath. It doesn't solve all of your problems, but you really need to be able to do it.
Yeah. And I do see there was a question from the community about doing this as a couple. So again, it's hard to find that time when you just have nothing left. I can tell you that my husband and I, um, we love binge watching series, and kids are down. Sometimes we leave the dirty dishes and we leave the laundry soaking in the washing machine that's probably been there for like a day, anyways. And we watch a show and we say every other week we will watch whatever episode. Tell you 99% of the time we end up falling asleep before the episode ends, but it's about just trying to find that time together to connect, texting each other silly memes or whatever it is, jokes, um, has been important for us because finding time to remember that you're still a couple while you're putting out a bunch of fires, I think is important. Jen, do you quickly have anything else that you can add about finding time as a
We
couple?
often, my husband and I try to get away for a getaway at least once or twice a year, overnight, where someone is watching our kids. And we often do this during March break. And we often try to do it halfway through March break. So we're watching our kids for a few days. Halfway through, we get away for one night away, just to be able to breathe. And our rule is we don't talk about the kids the entire time. Sometimes that might seem silly or that might feel impossible, but we need to be able to, like you said, talk about other things. Watch a show about something completely different from your own life. Um, and investing in your own relationship. I mean, there's going to come a time, believe it or not, that the kids aren't going to be living in your home. And that will happen, and it'll be just the two of you likely. So you want your relationships to survive, and yeah, prioritize it for sure.
And these are great questions too. So please feel free to bring more questions to us, whether again, the segment is over or you want to bring this to the AFCA community. Maybe there's a thread we can start in the Facebook group is about
Awesome.
couple time, especially when we know that something big transition is coming. So it is 101. Jen, I want to thank you so much for just being so open and having these discussions. And I know these aren't all the solutions for people, but at least we're starting this conversation and hopefully can get some wheels turning in our community and discussions happening. So I really appreciate you spending your lunch hour with us. We are doing snack and chats monthly. So if you are interested in learning about what's coming up next month, you can go ahead and take a look on our website. We will post that in the comments so you can see the list of what is coming up. We'd love for you guys to connect with us. Joining our community is free, and it's where you can get supports and resources for families just like yours. However, we do want to wish you a calm and hopeful March break, and make sure that you're reaching out to get the support that you need.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.